Women used to have one simple standard in family. Men used to be able to bet that if they went to a certain village and got a woman to marry, she had certain behaviors, period. She could cook, clean, rear children. That's it. She would never raise her voice. Because, like you said, our measuring stick is the way we treat each other. If we don't yell at each other, why would a woman ever yell at us? If I just have a moment of weakness and I raise my voice at Marcus, he tall as hell and he slapped the dog shit out of me. You think I'm gonna say, why did you do that? Nah, I raised my voice. You literally gonna want to fight. You gonna have your hand on your head, but when you sit down and calm down and that adrenaline calm down, like, why did I yell at that dude? That was embarrassing.
Mistaken. I think you made the point about a man maintaining, being a gentleman in those interactions. I think to excuse a woman having an adverse reaction and not give the same level of grace to a man who reciprocates that energy, I think that can be really unfair, right? Because yes, men are supposed to be the leaders. Yes, they're supposed to be more stoic. Yes, they're supposed to have more restraint over their emotions. But men are still human beings. That man could have had a bad day. That man could have just that's his trauma response to being yelled at. There's so many other factors that we just expect men to be a certain way, and women are allowed to have grace to make mistakes, and men don't get that same entitlement, specifically in those situations. I think in some situations, yes, there should be a little less wiggle room, but in something like that, we have no idea why that person why that man is reacting to that woman the way that he is, right? So I think in order for it to be constructive, everybody needs to just not do that to each other, right? It's not just...
That was the point that I was trying to get to. And so I totally agree with you. That was the point that I was trying to make, is that when men are telling women, you need to stay in your frame and stay in your femininity all the time, yeah. I was speaking from a point of them not being a gentleman when they're creating an environment in which could potentially have a woman come out her frame. Like you said, everyone is human. So what I was trying to get at is that he needs to act like a gentleman and she needs to stay in her frame. If that happens, then both parties will be able to kind of have the conversation that they need in order to, get to the solution or iron out any issues that led to the disagreement to begin with. But if he, mostly with women, and if a man says something in the wrong tone or comes out of line or say something that she's going to take offensively, he's raising his voice, a lot of times she will match that energy. And what I'm saying is if he's staying in as a gentleman and modeling that behavior, then 9 times out of 10, the woman is going to respond to that as well.
Yeah. Let me say this. So you use the word gentleman a lot. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, historically, gentlemen were taught to be gentlemen. You see what I'm saying? It is a learned behavior to go above and beyond for women in a more regal type way. Opening doors, all of that is taught. That is not natural. Now let's walk it back to the nature of men and women. I believe that being... noble, or being, helpful and chivalrous to women, more so applies to the way we behave with each other before a reaction can occur. I believe it is 100% natural for men to react the way they react sometimes. It is because nobody ever made an allotment for women to start disrespecting men and posturing men in this way. And that is historically true. Let me prove it. They used to kill women that used to act like this. They would not let them live in your society. They would throw them off a cliff. Women used to have one simple standard in family. Men used to be able to bet that if they went to a certain village and got a woman to marry, she had certain behaviors, period. She could cook, clean, rear children. That's it. She would never raise her voice. Because like you said, our measuring stick is the way we treat each other. If we don't yell at each other, why would a woman ever yell at us? If I just have a moment of weakness and I raise my voice at Marcus, he tall as hell and he slapped the dog shit out of me. You think I'm gonna say, why did you do that? Nah, I raised my. You literally gonna want to fight. You gonna have your hand on your head, but when you sit down and calm down and that adrenaline calm down, like, why did I yell at that dude? That was embarrassing because I knew what was about to pop off. No one in the world, abroad or anywhere, can understand why Western women keep posturing men. It's like, girl, do you want to die? But we keep seeing it in these spaces.
So I have a go ahead, AP.
No, I just had a question for the ladies because this is something that I don't see in these.
Separate question.
No, I mean I can. That's why I was saying I can wait on yours because I'm sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ask your question. Go ahead.
What I see in these spaces is I never see women correct, not necessarily correct, but call out the behavior of the woman that is out of line. I hardly ever see it. I hardly ever, almost
security pause. Oh my gosh, she called it out the other day, and I'm going to name names. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. And I've seen security boss get double teamed, triple teamed sometimes, but and that's why I say hardly ever because I've seen it. But why do we oftentimes see? Because men are going to sit back and let the women go at it. That's what we're going to do. Unless it gets too far to where we have to just rein it back in. Why don't we see enough women saying, "Hey, yo, you're kind of out of line. Like you can make a point without yelling." And we men, I've seen men do it. We will do it. We'll say, "Hey, you kind of loud. Bring it in." Why don't more women on these panels do that? Is it for the clicks, or are they just like, you know what? Not my problem.
Well, I know that Mistaken and I did it on my show before. Obviously, we did it off on. I think that we had a conversation before we got on the show. We let it very known that we will correct your behavior. There were things we did not agree on, and we did that on the show. The problem is, I guess, the way we do it is a little different. I'm not going to disrespect somebody, but I will call you out and say, "Hey, you were wrong with that." That I'm gonna talk to you like I talk to anybody else. I'm not gonna be like, "Girl, stop." I'm just going to politely say, I don't agree with you on that one. That was, do you remember what I'm talking about, Mistaken? I didn't want to call any names, but we were actually on a show and that took place. So I don't know.
So I think
it just doesn't happen the way I think you want it to happen.
So I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is, and Coach Cation and Mistaken can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times the women who move like that are not going to listen. And so a lot of time it's about just saving your breath because you don't also want to get cussed out in the process. Women who tend to be that type of combative are like that with everybody and not just men.
Facts.
What do you think? That's back to that masculine space that we were talking about. That's what we were talking about.
So I can definitely see that Inaz wouldn't do it. Coach K, yeah, no woman on this panel would do it for that reason Inaz just stated. And I can tell we've had multiple conversations where you're just going to rest in your femininity because you're like, she's lost. She's a lost one. I've literally watched a bunch of people like, ain't no saving her. So I can believe y'all when y'all say it. But there's another small group of women that because there ain't no sisterhood. We know that. It's a lie. It's a facade. The only time they're united is in their resistance against men. So you could see it in some people's face. We read facial expressions all day. They disagree like a mug. But for this particular thing, I can't go against her because the men gonna win. That's why they don't do it. Not y'all.
I don't agree because Inaz, she's really good with, No.
Y'all don't do it. Y'all don't do it. But there are some that will literally, because here's the funny part. We talk about a range of topics. And the women that behave like this, you have to agree, they don't have certain outcomes in life. So the women that align with them, then when they start talking crap, they'll be like, wait, girl, I don't agree with that. Like you'll see their face kind of screwing up, and you be like, is she gonna say something? Is she gonna correct her homegirl, or is she gonna remain a hyena today and not align this? And they always fail.
You'll
So-
be people agree with each other. It's sad, but they.
But
do.
I think to trigger Mike's point, right? Because I've seen that happen a lot, especially with people who have a more personal relationship. But the one thing that I think the men don't get to see is that correction typically happens behind the scenes, privately. It doesn't typically happen publicly, and I think that's where that disconnect is, where the men don't have access to seeing that. They don't always listen, but it does tend to happen more privately.
And I think
I was gonna say we don't see the change afterwards because they typically.
sometimes we can't change people.
Right. That was what I was gonna say. But one other thing though, I think as a man or as a leader, right? I believe that leadership is a burden, and effective communication to the person you're trying to give instruction to is a paramount, right? So it's certain ways that you come at people, especially if you know that they extremely combative, in order to convey a message that's going to either provoke or antagonize or create a issue within that person. And in the space particularly, it's a plus because it's great entertainment. But in real life, if you want to talk to people, you're going to have to find a medium to speak to them in which they can interpret your message and understand what you're saying, so they can act accordingly, and everything you're saying can be followed to the you know what I'm saying, to the letter. But I think when I said negative earlier, that's really what I was speaking to, because I think that men are learning a way to communicate with women that's going to be supremely ineffective for anything in their life outside of being on YouTube. You're not going to be able to teach your kids this way. You're not going to be able to talk to your potential woman, your wife, none of that stuff this way, and get any of the desired results you want. People are always talking about when you want results, or do you want an idea, or you know what I'm saying, a theory. I prefer to get a result. So if my tone is one where, look, okay, I see what you're saying. Here go XYZ to compromise. I understand what you're saying, but this is what I need you to do. Bam, I get what I want to get done. Versus, women, you need to listen to me because I'm a man, and start yelling and all that. Or that's not going to work. Like, I get Fresh and Fit makes lots of money doing it, but that shit ain't going to work in real life. Like, you're not going to be able to just say whatever you want, yelling and screaming, or I'm going to Frank Castle you. It's not going to work, bro. Like, if you want, like, an effective way to do, back to the initial point about boring solutions. You just, no, baby, check it out. Now, when you were saying XYZ, this was the problem right here. And because of that, we can't get to this point. And since we can't get to this point, we can't go no further. So what I need you to understand is you just can't be loud talking to people in public. That's going to create a situation where maybe I got to fight somebody, I got to kill them, I potentially go to jail. All those things can be avoided by you just tempering yourself down and not putting yourself in a man position where you confront a man. But if I'm going to Frank Castle, that's not going to work. They're going to ignore you, and they probably going to turn up on you too.
I agree, Marcus. Spot on, sir.